The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 31st webinar on the Secret Doctrine. This and all subsequent sessions will be available on makara.us under the subheading MF Mori Federation Webinars. Okay, we're going to continue on from last month. As is our habit, we'll start by checking in on HPB's travels in India, as described in old diary leaves by Colonel Olcott. Last month, we found our duo on a houseboat on the Buckingham Canal. This month, we'll continue with their journey on that canal. So could we get a reader for this and for the next page?
Okay, I'll start with this one, and then Michael, when we get to the next page, if you'll do that one, please, okay? This open page of my diary, with its but few fragmentary notes, brings back to memory one of the most delightful episodes of the Theosophical movement, and I see a picture of HPB in her shabby wrapper, sitting on her locker opposite me, smoking cigarettes. Her huge head, with its brown crinkled hair, bent over the page she was writing on. Her forehead full of wrinkles, a look of introverted thought in her light blue eyes. Her aristocratic hand driving the pen swiftly over the lines, and no sound to be heard save the liquid music of ripples against the boat's side, or the occasional rub of a coolie's naked foot on the roof above us as he moved to tighten a rope or obey some order of the helmsman.
Michael?
The next evening at 5 o'clock, we reached a place called Mutukor, where we landed to go overland to Nellore, a distance of 15 miles. Our round of bustle recommenced. A large delegation was waiting for us. We were conducted to a tent where refreshments were offered, and our hands and necks were soon full of fragrant flowers. An address of welcome was responded to, and in due time we found ourselves in a light phaeton with coolies for horses. Lithe, active fellows, they ran us along so as to cover the distance within 3 hours. A certain weird interest attaches to them, as they are a tribe of ancient origin called Anadhis, who are hereditary serpent charmers and extirpators. People who wish to sleep safe in their beds without the thought of snakes getting into their rooms call an Anati, and he walks round and round the house, repeating charms and setting up some enchanted stick or other fetish, after which no serpent will venture to trouble the inmates. Our friends declared this to be a well-known fact, and on their authority alone, I gave it record. I was told a thing worth knowing by travelers and hunters who have to camp out in snaky localities. It was this, that a serpent will not pass over a rope of horsehair, and that perfect immunity may be obtained from their visits by laying such a horsehair rope around one's house, tent, or whole camp. My informants did not know whether this is attributable to the roughness of the prickly rope hurting the snake's tender skin, or to some magnetic, auric, or other occult property of the hair being antipathetic to the reptile. However, that doesn't so much matter as the fact itself, if true.
Okay, a new reader, please.
Okay, Martha, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. We got to Nellore at 11 p.m. and received an ovation. A splendid house had been fitted up for our party. There were many flowers and decorative greenery, and late as was the hour, I had to reply to 2 addresses, one in Sanskrit, the other in English, after which we were allowed to go to our beds, tired out. We then moved on to a canal station called Maipaud, whither the boat had been taken to save 18 miles of canal traveling. Our writing and talks were now resumed, and in due course, we got to the Pataganjam, the limit of canal navigation in the hot season, and the place whence to proceed on to Guntar, our ultima thule. We had to take palanquins and jampans or carry chairs. They did not turn up until the following day, and as the coolies had to rest, we did not start until just before sunset.
Okay, and our last reading.
Our caravan.
David, would you like to read that for us, please?
I think I'm on mute.
No, you're fine.
We unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what I've got on my screen is the piece that's just been read, so it hasn't refreshed on my screen.
Can you read our caravan consisted of 4 palanquins?
No. No, that's just, no. It
No,
just stops with
Okay.
the sentence, we did not start until just before sunset.
Okay.
Yeah, it hadn't refreshed. Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll go to another reader. Thank you.
Thank
you. Lorraine, can you read that for us, please?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Our caravan consisted of 4 palanquins and 1 jampan, which, added to the baggage porters, made our coolies number 53 persons. We soon came to a ford where a river had to be crossed, and the performance made me laugh heartily and HPB to swear. The water was so deep that, to keep our palanquins' floors dry, the bearers had to balance the thick poles on their heads to lift us high enough. Before entering the water, they stripped naked, all but their langudi or breech clout. Picking their steps with greatest caution and sounding with their staves, they went in deeper and deeper until the water came up to their armpits. I politely led the way so that HPB might know if I was drowned and turned back. It was a ticklish experience to sit there motionless, so as not to destroy the balance of the round pole resting on my 6 coolies' heads. And fancy what a mess I and my papers would be in if one of the men made a misstep. However, one travels to gain experience, so I lay on my back as still as possible. When in midstream, I began to hear the sound of a familiar voice from the next palanquin, and presently HPB began shouting at me that these men would surely upset her. I shouted back that it didn't matter, as she was too fat to sink, and I should fish her out. Then she began to use weighty objurations at me with occasional diversions at the coolies who, not understanding a word, kept on their way as before. At last we reached the opposite shore, and my colleague rested herself by getting out and walking about, and after a few cigarettes, had forgotten her recent troubles.
Thank you, Louise. Yeah, we get a little insight into their relationship with this, don't we? Okay. As you can see by the words here emboldened, the dominant theme of stanza 4 is the archetypal septenary, the 7 in 1, representing the next stage in manifestation, compared to the previous stanzas. So could we get a reader for this description of stanza 4, please?
And Veronica, can you read that for us? You're self-muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm on the telephone. It might be a bit difficult, but I will read it. Stanza 4 shows that the differentiations of the germ of the universe into the septenary hierarchy of consciousness, divine powers, who are the active manifestations of the one supreme energy. They are the framers, is that right?
Yes.
The framers, shapers, and ultimately the creators of the manifested universe in the only sense in which the name creator is intelligible. They inform and guide it. They are the intelligent beings who adjust and control evolution embody in themselves those manifestations of the one law which we know as the laws of nature. Generically, they are known as the Dzyan Chohans. Through each of the various groups has its own designation in the Secret Doctrine. The stage of evolution is spoken of in Hindu mythology as the creation of the gods.
Thank you, Aunt Veronica. So this is going to be the theme of this entire stanza, is this stage of creation of the 1 and 7. So before we get started with the commentary on verse 3, let's take a look at what the Theosophical Glossary has to say about the number 7. Okay, I actually cut this down quite a bit. This is just the philosophical aspects of that, of the 7. So could we get a reader, please?
Yvonne, can you read that for us, please?
Sure. 7, the fundamental number of manifestation frequently found in the different cosmogonies, as well as in many religious dogmas and observances of the different ancient peoples. Although 10 was called one of the perfect numbers by the Pythagoreans, 7 was unique in their series of numbers because it has all the perfection of the unit, the number of numbers. For as absolute unity is uncreated and impartite undivided, hence numberless, and no number can produce it, so is the 7. No digit contained within the decade can beget or produce it. That's from Secret Doctrine. 7 is the number of the manifested universe, while 10 or 12 is the number of an unmanifested universe. Pythagoras taught that 7 was composed of the numbers 3 and 4, explaining that on the plane of the noumenal world, the triangle was, as the first conception of the manifest deity, its image, Father, Mother, Son, and the quaternary, the perfect number, was the noumenal, ideal root of all numbers and things on the physical plane. Further, 7 was called by the Pythagoreans the vehicle of life, for it consisted of body and spirit. The body was held to consist of 4 principal elements, while the spirit was in manifestation triple, comprising the monad, intellect, or essential reason, the mind. 7 is indeed the sacred number of life, and with the circle and the cross, it forms a triad of primordial symbols of the ancient wisdom.
Thank you. Any thoughts or questions about this passage? Okay, first from the Secret Doctrine. I pushed the wrong button here, folks. Seven was unique in their series of numbers because it had all the perfection of the unit, the number of numbers. For as absolute unity is uncreated and impartite, undivided, it's numberless, and no number can produce it, so is the 7. No digit contained within the decade can beget or produce it. So 7 has the perfection of the unit because, like 3, it can only be divided evenly by the number 1. But why does this give the 7 a philosophically unique position? To understand, we have to lift our perspective concerning the arithmetical function of division to subjective levels. 7ness, as opposed to 7 beans or 7 cups sitting on a shelf, is inherently unresponsive to division, adhering instead to the energy of unity. We have to recondition our understanding of these numbers in terms of the energy that is expressed by the number, right, rather than counters, the way we normally think of numbers, right? Thus, 7 is energetically totally other than the easily divided 6 or 8. 7's resistance to division is what allows it to be the 7 in 1 of the manifested universe. The 7 Prajapatis who are actually, quote, seed thoughts of the One. Next, we have the quote on the Pythagorean thought. The triangle is the image of deity, and image itself being a vehicle, like the spiritual triad is for the monad. And from it issues the 4 principal elements, together forming the root of matter, much like the 4 rays of attribute issue from the 3rd ray of aspect. But to the Pythagoreans, the septenary wasn't just the 3 and the 4, but also the inherent unity of spirit and matter, represented by the 1 and the 7. Hermes Trismegistus is quoted as saying, "Oh, my son, matter becomes. Formerly it was, for matter is the vehicle of becoming," unquote. Thus, becoming is the mode of activity of the unmanifest deity, demonstrating through the quaternary. Next, 7 is indeed the sacred number of life, and with the circle and the cross, it forms a triad of primordial symbols of the ancient wisdom. The circle and cross is a symbol for many things, the most causal being the 3rd cosmic logos. Inherent in the symbol of the 3rd logos are the symbols of the 2 logi that precede it and from which it issues. The progression is from a point to a horizontal diameter to the cross. Any final thoughts or questions on this Theosophical Glossary entry? We'll be focusing on the 3rd verse of Stanza 4. Yeah, oh, there's a question? Okay.
Go ahead, please, Lorraine.
Francis, what is your interpretation of that triplicity there? Spirit was in manifestation triple, comprising monad, intellect or essential reason, and mind. What came to me first was, we talk about the triad here, we'd normally say Atma, Buddhi, and Manas. What are your thoughts on that triplicity as listed there?
Yeah, it's more oriented towards the incarnate human being, rather than the normal 3 principles. So I've seen him do this before, where it's he, her, right? It's the influence of the fundamental principles on the incarnated jiva, right? And I think that's what we've got here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what level we're working from here, and the exact reference of monad there and how monad fits into that triplicity. But I haven't been with your studies from the beginning, so this may have been addressed earlier.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, essential reason is also Buddhic in nature, right? So you have this. You could think that he's going. It's interesting because intellect, when more broadly described, is Buddhic. It's the intellect. We tend to think of it as the lower mind, one's intellect, but in fact, in its full explanation, it is Buddhic in nature, right? So we have this, and I agree, it's peculiar in that instead of Atma Buddhi Manas, which is the normal triplicity, you have, monadic Buddhi Manas, once you understand that intellect or essential reason is Buddhic, right? And that was the focus of the Pythagorean understanding. I'm rereading this now. Further, someone the body was held to consist of 4 principal elements of the spirit. Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Spirit for us in modern theosophy, and I think even for HPB would be Atma Buddhi Manas, right?
Right. Because it's in manifestation. It specifically says was in manifestation triple. So that's why I went right away to triad as opposed to monad itself. Although, of course, there's a level at which monad is manifestation as well. But I agree with you, intellect or essential reason is buddhi, and then manas, mind, thinking higher mind, monastic permanent atom. But yeah, it just seemed a little odd to me. That's why I wanted your thoughts.
And the other thing is, if you look at the monad as understood by the Greeks or by the Pythagoreans, it's not necessarily modern theosophical monad. In terms of things like subplanes, it's, even since HPB's time to DK, we have a shift in terminology. The most dramatic being the use of the term astral, which is in HPB's time represented pretty much everything above physicality, all the way up, which is why it was given that name, stellar or astral, which is not really descriptive of the astral plane. So we could have something like that going on here, that the monas, M-O-N-A-S, which is the singularity that is a human being, also a monad, the oneness, could have been understood, a little differently. I haven't done enough exploration. I know that agathon is the higher equivalent of the monad in that Greek thought, but thanks for pointing that out. It's interesting.
Well, that's really interesting too that you mentioned agathon. As I recall from the one semester of ancient Greek that I had a few decades ago, that means the good.
It just depends. It also can mean unmanifest deity, depending on who you're talking to. A lot of these, for instance, there's a quote in about agathon, and I'll wait for that quote. But Plato gives it a much more elevated sense. You could say, that it's the source of good. It's just much beyond good. As good is beyond that, in other words, the Greek understanding of good was already quite elevated compared to modern English usage of it, and that this agathon was a principle from which the good emanated. And that gets a little closer to the truth, but there's an even higher version, which is that it's deity in the unmanifest stages, so it depends on your source. Yeah,
that's helpful. Thank you. Yeah, and with the monad, understanding that just as a more comprehensive term there is helpful. I was kind of wondering if that was the intention. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm not completely satisfied with my answer, but so I'm glad you are. But I would like to look into this a little further.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's more to look into, but that is helpful.
Okay.
Okay, and we have several more comments. First is Malia. She says, everything I read about the 7 seems to me to apply also to the number 5. What am I missing?
Well, let's see. The number 5 is specific to the quality of phi. It's also very strongly related to human initiation, right? But you're right in terms of the fact that 5 can only be divided by 1 and itself. In that sense, it's a inherently inclusive number. That is to say, 5-ness is a much more of a unit than, for instance, 6 or 8 is, right? But it has very particular qualities having to do with both phi and with initiation, right? And you have the fact that its 2 phis are 10, so it is divisible within that decade, right, or the decad. In that way, you divide 10 by 2, you get 5. But 7 has no division, right? But it's, it's also important, and I get into this a little later, it's important to see these numbers in terms of their unique, inherent, energetic quality, rather than what we do with them, which is counters and, how do you, it's like slice and dice in order to come up with another number. The unique qualities of these numbers determine the spiritual qualities that are associated with them, right? You could say it's even the other way around, that the unique qualities in a number are causal to that which is associated with those numbers, right? So, good thought.
And then we have
Okay.
we have another one from Anne Veronica. She says, is 7 for this universe only? I think for the next universe there will be another number.
It's interesting. Yeah, DK suggests that there will be, that's in fact the case. I can't remember the quote, so I'm wanting to say 5, because see what happens is that 6th and 7th aspect of 7 will fall below the threshold, because one of the strongest uses of 7, of course, are the subplanes, right, of each plane and also of the cosmic physical plane, and that those lowest 2 planes will fall below the threshold of consciousness in a way really inconceivable to us for the next solar system. So I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but it might be 5 that number goes to. If anybody knows, pipe up. This really is, even though it's a presented webinar, it's also kind of a group study session, because I don't always have all the answers, as painful as that is for me to contemplate. Anybody else?
That's all I see for right now.
Okay, then. Let's get into the verses. Oh, I did it again. There we go. So, we'll be focusing on the 3rd verse of stanza 4, a key verse for this entire session. Normally we do 2 verses, but this one's going to be all about verse 3. But I'd like to start by rereading the first 2 verses, which together act as a kind of preamble for the 3rd, because he's saying, listen and learn, and then what you're listening and learning about is what takes place in the 3rd verse, right? So if we could get somebody to just read straight through the 3 verses, please.
Carrie, can you do that for us, please?
Yeah, okay. Listen, ye sons of the earth, to your instructors, the sons of the fire. Learn, there is neither first nor last, for all is one number issued from no number. Learn what we who descend from the primordial 7, we who are born from the primordial flame, have learned from our fathers. From the effulgency of light, the ray of the ever darkness sprung in space, the reawakened energies, the one from the egg, the 6 and the 5. Then the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5, the twice 7, the sum total. And these are the essences, the flames, the elements, the builders, the numbers, the arupa, the rupa, and the force of divine man, the sum total. And from the divine man emanated the forms, the sparks, the sacred animals, and the messengers of the sacred fathers within the Holy Four.
Okay, so buckle your seatbelts. This is a deep journey that we're about to go on here. So the footnote to the verse itself, referencing within the Holy Four, reads, the 4, represented in the occult numerals by the tetractys, the sacred or perfect square, is a sacred number with the mystics of every nation and race. It has one and the same significance in Brahmanism, Buddhism, the Kabbalah, and in the Egyptian, Chaldean, and other numerical systems. Okay, 4 as a perfect number is what the Greeks called the higher or spiritual tetractys, represented here by the upward pointing black triangle and the point in the center, which is also the point at the center of the lower tetractys, shown by the gray down pointing triangle, which represents the 4 primordial elements. In Platonism, the 4 points of the spiritual tetractys are agathon, nu, psyche, and heli. Plato said about agathon, fair as both knowledge and truth are, you will think rightly in supposing agathon to be something different and fair still than these. That's from Plato's Republic. Okay, let's take a look at HPB's commentary for section A, which references from the effulgency of light, the ray of the ever darkness, sprung in space, the reawakened energies, the Chohans, the 1 from the egg, the 6, and the 5. So could we get a reader for starting at where it says A?
And Veronica, can you read that for us,
Yes.
please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This relates to the sacred signs of the numerals, so sacred indeed and so important in the study of occultism that the subject can hardly be skimmed, even in such a large work as the present. It is on the hierarchies and correct numbers of these beings invisible to us, except upon very rare occasions, that the mystery of the whole universe is built. The Kumaras, for instance, are called the 4, though in reality 7 in number, because Sanaka, Sanadana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara are the chief Vaidhatra, the patronymic name, as they spring from the 4-folded mystery. To make the whole clearer, we have to turn for our illustrations to tenets more familiar to some of our readers, namely the Brahmanical.
So any thoughts or questions about this paragraph? I know sometimes it takes a while to sink in, so if, a little later something occurs, just raise your hand. So the quote, science of the numerals is an occult discipline that concerns itself with those specific numbers that are associated with hierarchies of beings upon which, quote, the mystery of the whole universe is built. This suggests that both the numbers associated with a particular hierarchy and the beings who make up that hierarchy are energetically one, that each hierarchical potency is determined by the specific qualities of the number it expresses. This is a very important understanding. As an example of this, HPB cites the 4 Kumaras, who are really 7, giving us the Pythagorean abstract 3 and manifest 4. A phrase from verse 1 of stanza 7, which we're, of course, yet to study, gives us further insight. Quote, these are the 3-fold and the 4-fold downward, the mind-born sons of the Lord Avalokiteshvara, the shining 7, the builders. Referencing this, HPB says, the chief hierarchies among these are hinted at in the great quaternary, or the 4 bodies and the 3 faculties, unquote, suggesting that the 4 bodies are possibly the manifesting Kumaras, including Sanat Kumara. The 4-fold mystery is the higher tetractys, the holy 4 from the verse. Okay, without yet getting into specifics, here's a chart constructed by the Hindu Theosophist Subha Roy, describing the 4-fold classification, possibly the 4-fold mystery, of cosmic, systemic, and human evolution. And we'll get back to this chart. Let's go ahead, though. Next up. Can we get a reader, please?
Scott, can you read that for us? You're self-muted, so. There you go.
There I am. Where am I reading from again? According to
Manu.
According to Manu, Hiranyagarbha is Brahma, the first male formed by the indiscernible, causeless cause, in a golden egg resplendent as the sun, as states the Hindu Classical Dictionary. Hiranyagarbha means the golden, or rather the effulgent womb or egg. Meaning tallies awkwardly with the epithet of male. Surely the esoteric meaning of the sentence is clear enough. In the Rig Veda, it is said that the one Lord of all beings, the one animating principle of gods and man, arose in the beginning in the golden womb, Hiranyagarbha, which is the mundane egg or sphere of our universe. That being is surely androgynous, and the allegory of Brahma separating into two and recreating in one of his halves, the female Vash, himself as Virage, is a proof of it.
Okay. Any thoughts or questions? Any thoughts or questions about this paragraph? So to place Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, within the overall system, let's revisit Subaru's fourfold classification, where we find it emerging from the root substance to become the first singularity, whether called Brahma, Prajapati, or Oyahu, the younger. You know, in stanza 3, we went through this quality of the emanating, right? The darkness emanating one ray of light, that whole process creating the golden egg. What didn't happen in stanza 3 was this further development into the septenary. So Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, is the source of the one Lord, but that one Lord, and this is the new information, is the 1 in 7. That Prajapati is in fact 7. Okay? So on a universal level, Hiranyagarbha is Ishvara, the cosmic third logos. In the human evolution, it is the monad. On all 3 levels, it is within the sphere of influence of that, the one Lord of all beings, the one animating principle of gods and man. The one Lord as a singularity, not to be confused with the unmanifest Parabrahman, the one life which pervades all. It's an important distinction to have in mind. It's also the distinction between pretty much all esoteric schools of thought on this subject of deity, and the exoteric, where the highest instance is in fact the level of the singularity, right, of the one Lord. Okay. HPB then makes an argument for the androgyny of this one God who separates, reads, expresses itself as Virage and Vash. Let's take a look at the Theosophical Glossary's entries on these 2 aspects of the one Lord Brahma. Okay, can we get a reader for the Vash entry?
Michael Stacy, can you read that for us, please?
Vash, thought, sound, voice, word, the mystic sound, svara, or essence of spirit, of the divine creative activity, the vehicle of divine thought, and of this the word was the manifested expression. Vash, or its equivalents in other cultures, is always considered feminine. Cosmically, she is the carrier or mother of the third logos, the word or verbum, because of carrying perpetually within her the essence of divine thought, the first logos. And hence, Vash is the second logos, equivalent to the early Christian Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost, later transmogrified into a cosmic male. In Hindu mythology, Brahma separates his body into masculine and feminine, the feminine becoming Vash, in whom he creates Virage, who is himself again Brahma. Here we have the three logoi. Brahma, the first logos, the divine thought. Vash, the second logos, the divine voice. And Virage, the third logos, or the divine word, the philosophical equivalent of the Son of the Christian Trinity.
Thank you, Michael. So this really is the source of divine feminine. This is the highest feminine energy, right? Which carries forth the essence of the first logos via the word into manifestation. That word then becomes the creative aspect born from this duality. And that's the second Brahma, which is interesting. You know, in making it the same, it's now, instead of the neutered Brahma, it's the quote male Brahma, because then it's that singularity who is able to create and becomes the 7 in 1, the essence of the creative spirit and the third logos, but it is through the 7 that the creation actually takes place. Okay, so if we could get a reader for the Virage segment.
Carrie, can you read that for us, please?
Virage, Sanskrit, sovereign, splendid. In Hindu mythology, the son of Brahma, who on analogical lines becomes Manu. In the laws of Manu, Brahma divides his body into male and female parts. And in the female part, Vash creates Viraj, who is also Brahma, the type of all male beings, as Vash is the type of female beings. Manu declares himself created by Viraj, or Vaiswanara, the spirit of humanity, which means that his monad emanates from the never-resting principle in the beginning of every new cosmic activity. That logos, or universal monad, collective Elohim, that radiates from within himself all those cosmic monads that become the center of activity, progenitors of the numberless solar systems, as well as of the yet undifferentiated human monads of planetary chains, as well as every being thereon. The verse in the Rig Veda has Viraj spring from Purusha, and Purusha spring from Viraj. Viraj is comparable in some aspects to the Egyptian Horus and equivalent to the third logos.
Thank you, Carrie. Any thoughts or questions? So it's a profound teaching, this. And, you know, it makes esoteric Hinduism, you know, one of the most important revealers of the ancient wisdom teachings. Okay, next up. And now we're going to get into it, folks. Can we get a reader for this?
Okay, Scott, you're self-muted. There you go. Thank you.
The 1 from the egg, the 6 and the 5. Give the number 1065. The value of the firstborn. Later on, the male and female Brahma Prajapati. who answers to the numbers 7 and 14 and 21 respectively. The Prajapati are, like the Sephiroth, only 7, including the synthetic Sephira of the triad from which they spring. Thus, from Hiranyagarbha or Prajapati, the triune primeval Vedic Trimurti, Agni, Vayu, and Surya emanate the other 7, or again 10, if we separate the first 3, which exist in 1, and 1 in 3. All, moreover, being comprehended within that one supreme Parama, called Guya, or secret, and Saravatma, super soul. The 7 lords of being lie concealed in Saravatma, like thoughts in one brain. So are the Sephiroth. It is either 7 when counting from the upper triad headed by Kether, or 10 exoterically. In the Mahabharata, the Prajapati are 21 in number, or 10, 6, and 5. 1, 0, 6, 5, thrice 7.
Thoughts or questions? So this is the beginning of a somewhat dense section on sacred number to get a better idea of the meanings of 1065. Let's take a look at the footnote. Could we get a reader for this, please?
Scott, can you read that footnote for us too?
Sure. In the Kabbalah, the same numbers are a value of Jehovah, see, such as 1065, since the numerical values of the 3 letters which compose his name, Yad, Val, and twice A, are respectively 10, 6, and 5, or again thrice 7, 21. 10 is the mother of the soul, for life and light are therein united, says Hermes. For number 1 is born of the spirit, and the number 10 from matter, chaos, feminine. The unity has made the 10, and the 10 the unity, book of keys, of the keys. By the means of the Timura, the anagrammatical method of the Kabbalah, and the knowledge of 1065, 21, a universal science may be obtained regarding cosmos and its mysteries. Rabbi Yogal. The rabbis regarded the numbers 10, 6, and 5 as the most sacred of all.
Okay, any thoughts or questions? Anagrammatical refers to the rearrangement of the letters of a word in order to reveal further meaning or to hide the original meaning. An example of this is the word tarot, wherein a series of anagrammatical variations further describe the meaning of the tarot, as shown in the so-called Wheel of Fortune, which is perhaps not coincidentally the 10th arcanum. Actually, there's reason to believe the major arcana of the tarot illustrate the creative unfoldment represented by the number 1065. For example, as with 1065, the 1 and the 0 come first, representing in both cases spirit and the field of endeavor. Also, as with 1065, 11 arcana, 10th. And finally, the final arcanum is 21. 10 plus 6 plus 5 equals 21. This 21st arcanum is the world, or manifested universe, the end result of the process of becoming, represented by the number 1065. A good starting point for our analysis of this number, 1065, is the statement made by Hermes Trismegistus. Number 1 is born of the spirit, and the number 10 from matter, chaos, feminine. The unity has made the 10 the unity. This last phrase, unity has made the 10 the unity, describes the interdependence of spirit and matter. For without either polarity, manifestation would become one with the absolute. A real-world example of this can be found in the binary ones and zeros of computer code. Take away either, and there is no code. Take away either spirit or matter, and there is no manifestation. So, in the realm of the unmanifest, 1, 0 represents the duality of 1 and 10. In manifestation, the 1 becomes the Trinity, and the 10, the septenary. Again, adding to 10. HPB tells us that, quote, the Prajapati are like the Sephiroth, only 7. These are the primordial 7 who are born from the primordial flame, as described in the first 2 verses of the stanza. The 3 are the, quote, synthetic sephira of the triad from which they spring, which stands in this position on our chart. They are, quote, the triune primeval Vedic Trimurti, Agni, Vayu, and Surya, which emanate the other 7. So, the monad is 1, the monadic or causal vehicle is triple, and the Prajapatis, which spring from the golden egg, are 7-fold, the 7 and 1. These 3 and 7 are also represented by the sephira of the tree of life. How is it, we might ask? Yes?
I'm sorry.
Did you have some?
Scott's got his hand up. He has had for a while.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. One of the questions I had when first reading this, and still do, to some degree, is reading the 1 from the egg, 6 and the 5. And with sacred numerology, those numbers are turned around. It should be 0, 1, 6, 5 from what it says. But I think what the number really is 0, 1, 0, 6, 5.
Right, that gets, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, in order to have the 10, which is substantive, you have the 1 moving to the 1, 0, which then allows for the involution of substance from the 1, right? So the 10 comes from the 1, which is why the
But where's the 1
have it in that order. What?
Like sort of like the Fibonacci numbers.
Yeah, in that way it's true. And then the the 0 before, which isn't really a 0, and that's a whole other discussion, would be no number, right? It would be the source of number, which is no number, right? And you can, if you want, you can call that 0, but it's really
it's the egg.
Well, is it? I don't think so, actually. It's more like, if you go back to the very beginning of stanza 3, it talks about how Narayana breathes over the ocean of substance. And this is darkness itself. I think that's the kind of source you're looking at. And then from this, feminine cosmic chaos sea issues forth, the ray of light that drops the non-eternal egg, right? So it's a bit down the line, the golden egg, right? But yeah, it's a good point. It's interesting too that in the Tarot you also have that questionable position of the 0 and the 1, right?
Yeah.
Right. Really, I think the seeker has to have something to seek. So from a more cosmological point of view, the 1 has to come first, and yet you can see it as just sequentially that, of course, the 0 precedes the 1. But in fact, for the same reason, 1, 0 together become the seeker and the sought, right? Um, so it's just, you know, I'm not sure that it's about the solution, but it's in savoring the numerical arrangement that you can get more insight. All right. Anything else, Scott?
No, I just I like that at 0 up front. Maybe evolutionary, 0, 1, 0. Go either way with that.
Yeah.
Returning back to 0 precedes the 1.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, if you think of 1, you know, it depends what you're assigning to 1. If 1 becomes the singularity of of Oyahu the Younger, you know, the one God or the one Lord, then you can see a 0 preceding it. If it represents, you know, as is described by Hermes Trismegistus, is spirit, you know, spirit, and then matter through the 10, then the 0 before would have to be no number, right? So you can look at it either way. You can, you know, and you can place it either way, and it would work.
That goes back to the beginning of what part 3 here, the stanza, where all is one number issued from no number.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's it. Yeah. So that's the original. Yeah. So, you know, if you want to use 0 as no number, you know, which works, you just have to define it as such. You know, others say 0 is a heresy, that there is no 0 because it suggests nothing. I think HPB rails against this at some point, you know. But, you know, it's just what you assign it. Obviously, the Arabs thought it was useful. That's since they invented it. Actually, probably not. It was probably codified by the Arabs. They think that, in fact, it was all the way back. There's some reference in ancient Hindu thought to this cipher, idea of a cipher, you know. But
right.
Anyway. So, yeah, okay, good. Let's see, where am I here? I totally lost my place. Yeah, we did this, didn't we? Right, okay. So how is it, we might ask, that the one Lord that springs forth from the golden egg are also the 7 Prajapatis? HPB says, the 7 Lords of Being lie concealed in Sarvatma, like thoughts in one brain. Remember, Sarvatma is this feminine principle, much like the second Logos. So, and then she says, so are the Sephiroth. There's, you know, this is a parallel philosophy, this idea of the Sephiroth, which is very particularly of Kabbalic origin. So you can see that our habit of thinking in terms of discrete beings gets in our way of conceptualizing these living, interrelated nexuses of energy who are essentially one. And I'm talking about this 7 and 1, right? But express themselves as 7 streams. We see again this energetic reconfiguration in the last statement in the paragraph, which restates the first. In the Mahabharata, the Prajapati are 21 in number, or 10, 6, and 5. 1065, thrice 7. Later in the SD, HPB speaks of 3 orders of Dhyani Chohans, 3 sevens, or 21. The quest to further unveil 1065 took me deep into volume 2 of the SD. the upshot of what I found is this. The relationship between a creator God, whether it be Brahma, the Prajapatis, or Oyahu the Younger, or Jehovah for that matter, and humanity is universally represented by the relationship of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. The ratio of 1065, the quote, value of the firstborn, that's a quote from the commentary, to 339, a number associated with humanity, is very, very close. So 1065 to 339 is, for all intents and purposes, pi, right? In fact, the digits that are always used in the sacred determination, which is 31415, are the same. It's only 3 digits later, you're getting into the zillionths of a unit there. Do they vary from actual pi? So it's definitely representative, right? This leaves little doubt that 1065, it's not just a random number, it represents the circle that is the third logos. The following passage from SD emphasizes this point. It is a most singular thing. At the entrance passage to the king's chamber, the measurement from the surface of the great step, that's my illustration, not my photo, but I brought it in, and the grand gallery to the top of the said gallery, so from the surface of the step up to the top of the grand gallery, is by the very careful measures of Piazzi Smith, 339 inches. Since 339 represents humanity, we can see the pyramid as a geometrical means of relating humanity to deity, as the diameter relates to the circle. These numbers are so specific that even when they occur singularly and not in relationship, it points to the fact of the other. You understand what I'm saying? So any thoughts or questions about this? About anything in this? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Scott. I just muted you, sorry. Now you're self-muted, go ahead. There.
Sure. What's not explained in any of this that I recall or seen is where the 6 comes from and the 5.
That's right. That's not explained.
And why 7? Why 5?
Yeah.
And exceed the digits, the first 5 digits for pi, which is extraordinary. But they don't. But why? What are they? What's the 6 and the 5 about?
Well, I conjecture, and in a coming, I conjecture on that. Is something I developed way back in my webinar series on sacred geometry. So I get into it and try to address that. But I don't address the 6 and 5. I address the 5 as part of 31415. But yeah, that remains a mystery. We're told very specifically that these numbers are energetic, that they energetically define the hierarchical source of these numbers, right? And yet we're not told how or why. However, when this really led me into a lot of other sources, and in what's the name of that book? Small book she wrote where she comments on the Secret Doctrine. HPB does commentaries from the Lodge, Blavatsky Lodge, blah, blah, blah. I think I quoted here, so we'll come up on it. She says, somebody asked her very point blank, what is the meaning of these numbers? And she said, that meaning is not something that can be given to the public. That's all she would say.
There you go.
So even when, directly presented with that question. She didn't give it. And she answered, you know, a lot of in that book. She answers a lot about these stanzas. In fact, I wish I'd stumbled on this earlier because I could have used it in our analysis. But at any rate, yeah.
Francis?
So the 6 and 5 is not described anywhere I can find, and I went through every source I could find on this, and it didn't come up.
Well, what from the exoteric numerology of the number, if you take the factors of 1065, you get 3 times 5 times 71, which rearranged is 1, 3, 5, and 7.
Oh, that's nice. I didn't do that. Yeah. And you also have it that
in a circle,
right.
71, 1, 3, 5, 7, 7, 1. So you get 3 times 5 times 71. That's this number.
3 times 5 times 71. And of course, 15 is 6. So, you know, 3 times 5 numerologically combined becomes 6. So you have that source of 6ness in there. And then of course the 7-1 is the very nature that, you know, she tells us is the very nature of this number, which is, you know, the number of this 7 and 1 Prajapati, right? Thanks for that. Good stuff.
One of our favorite numbers.
Hey,
17.
while you guys are talking about numbers, Anne Veronica wants to know, why does 339 relate to humanity?
It's, you know, I can't give you a logical reason. It is quoted as such, and also a third of 339, which is 113, is related to it. And you find that in different sources, like, for instance, in Ralston Skinner's Source of Measures, he relates the number 113 to humanity. This is actually, let's see, 1065 divided by 3 is 355 to 113. That is the irreducible pi relationship, right? It's just multiplied by 3 to get it to 1065. But I can't directly answer that except to say that there are other sources that verify it. If anybody has any ideas, interestingly, it does add to 5, 113, in extension 339. It's the same number. Numerologically, it becomes the same from one perspective. And in 113, you have 5, right? Yeah. So you have demonstrations like this, top of the step to the top of the gallery. You have demonstrations of it that can be sort of reverse engineered, but getting to the fundamental reason is usually a secret of initiation, right? When it actually, like, for instance, what is that 6 and 5 about? I mean, you know, one of my ideas is that it's Davic and human in orientation, right? But I can't verify that. Yeah.
Karsten says, what about the 6-pointed star, the 2 triangles, and the 5-pointed star?
What about them? You
Yeah,
mean as
I think
examples?
it's right, in relation to what you're discussing here, the 6 and the 5.
Well, interestingly, she literally does this in the body of her commentary. She says the 1, the cube, the 5-pointed star, you know, as ways of describing this. And I think the reason for that is to shift us from the kind of hypnosis of a number as a counting mechanism to its greater meaning, which certainly, you know, a step in that direction are these figures, right, in terms of their meaning. So yes, definitely. But, you know, so, you know, it could be that you know, for instance, you could say that the 6-pointed star is, if you relate it to the David kingdom, that is both involutionary and evolutionary. It's, you know, because you have the two triangles pointing in either direction. And so you have elementals that form the substantive realms, and you have high devas, you know, whereas humankind is only upwardly oriented, right, in the 5-pointed star. But, you know, that's just definitive. I mean, that's not definitive at all. That's just extrapolation. Okay. So, but yeah, good thinking. That's what this is all about. Because we're not given the answer. Anything else? Anyone else? Good stuff.
That's all I see right now.
Okay.
Oops.
So,
And just as I said that, a hand popped up.
that's fine.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
Hi, Francis, you're probably aware of this, but there is justification for you associating the 6 with the devas and 5 with man in TCF.
Okay.
It says the number of the deva evolution is 6, as that of man is now 5, and as 10 stands for perfected man, so 12 stands for perfection in the deva kingdom.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lorraine. It could be, you know, just that it's stuck in my, you know, the recesses of my memory, and I pulled it forward. I don't know, because it, but yeah, okay, there you have it. So,
that's,
you know,
page, I'm sorry, page 914 in TCF, if anyone wants to look it up.
thank you. That's really useful. Thank you. I didn't get so far as to do that exploration. That's what these, you know, that's these webinars at their best, you know, is what's happening right now, as far as I'm concerned, because we get to a further level through this discussion. So, you know, to me, that is a very viable explanation of the 1065, right? You have, in a sense, the pure spirit, spirit and matter, as described by Hermes Trismegistus, right? The 1 and the 10. And then you have the David kingdom and the human kingdom, all encompassed within the one Lord, you know, the singularity, which is the universe. It's, you know, that Lord conditions this entire manifestation called the universe. And within that universe, you have these two fundamental, and of course, remember too, that when we're looking at the Secret Doctrine and you say the universe, you can be talking about the solar system, right? So the one Lord then becomes the solar logos. That's, you know, that's another way of looking at it. And within that universe, you have these two lines, the 6 and the 5, right? I like it. You know, does it mean that it's absolutely true? Of course not. But that's definitely another step towards, in terms of our hypothesis, it's definitely a good argument for that. Anyone else? Oh, it's more hands.
Yes, Trudy has a comment, so go ahead, Trudy.
I just wanted to say about this pyramid. I've read a book, or read a book about the measurements in and outside of the pyramid. They all have significance.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they really do. And one of the fundamental significances is exactly what we're talking about, which is the relationship of the diameter to the circle. And that relationship is expressed in the height of the pyramid in connection with a circle that can be drawn around the pyramid. That height is in a relationship of a radius to the circle that can be circumscribed around the pyramid. So, you know, you can see that if you were to take all these measurements together, you would have an explication of what we're talking about, this 1065, right? Because it all comes from the diameter. Remember, the diameter in relation to 339, which is here expressed on this page that I'm showing, is the relationship of the circumference to the diameter. So yeah, thanks for that. All right, anyone else before we head out?
Nope,
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay, so let's move on. One of these days, I'm going to quit hitting the wrong button. What happens is it completely loses my place in the notes. So, all right, here we are. My apologies, folks. Okay, here we go. HPB's next paragraph of commentary references the B section of verse 3, which states, then the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5, the twice 7, the sum total. Okay, it's just that series of numbers. So that's what this B section of commentary references. Could we get a reader for this paragraph?
Trudy, can you read that for us, please?
From the effulgency of light, the ray of...
No, wait a minute. That's the verse. Just start at B.
A B. Oh, yeah. Right. The 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5 in their totality, twice 7, represent 3, 1, 4, 1, 5. The numerical is hierarchy of the Dzyan choans of various orders and of the inner or circumscribed world. When placed on the boundary of the great circle of Pass Not, the Stanza 5, called also the Dhyanipasa, the rope of the angels, the rope that hedges off the phenomenal from the nominal cosmos, not falling within the range of our present objective consciousness. This number, when not enlarged or permutation and expansion, is ever 31415, anagrammatically and kabbalistically, being both the number of the circle and the mystic swastika, the twice 7 once more. For whatever way the two sets of figures are counted, then added separately, one figure after another, whether crossways from right or from left, they will always yield 14. Mathematically, they represent the well-known calculation, namely that the ratio of the diameter to the circumference of a circle is as 1 to 3.1415, or the value of the p, as this ratio is called. The symbol p means always used. The symbol p is being always used in mathematical formula to express it. This set of figures must have the same meaning, since the one
in ratio to
314.159, and then again 3.
Let me read this. 1 in relation to 3 in relation to 1415927. Go ahead.
Are working out in the secret calculations to express the various cycles and ages of the firstborn, or
311 trillion 40 billion
with fractions, and yield the same 13.415 by a process we are not concerned with at present.
Okay, so this is, it's hard to grok. I know all these numbers can seem daunting, especially for non-math types, which is why we're only going to be focusing on the philosophy represented by the numbers. So, hang in there. It's actually incredibly interesting philosophy that is being that is buried, you could say, in these numbers. So in the 31415, we again see the significance of the 7, or the sum of the string of digits making up 31415 equals 14, or twice 7, whereas the sum of 10 plus 6 plus 5 equals 21, or thrice 7. Both numbers relate the circumference of a circle to its diameter. In the first sentence of the commentary, we're told the astonishing fact that, and here's where the number and philosophy come together, that 31415 represent the numerical hierarchy of the Dhyani Chohans, a class of builders that implement the designs of the 7 Prajapatis within the, quote, inner or circumscribed world. Of course, that's going to be represented by these numbers. This suggests that each digit within these numbers represents a particularly conditioned, energetic field of creative expression. The collective effort of this expression is to form a great ring-pass knot that hedges off the phenomenal world from the numinal cosmos. Is everybody with me?
It's very cool.
Okay, I know it can be difficult, but hang in there. So the swastika is the active agent of creation, representing both time and motion. In Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, HPB says, let's get a reader for this. Notice that swastika is made up of snakes. I really love that. It's just 2 entwined snakes that cross in the middle. I really like that. It's very Caduceus-like in that way.
Okay, Yvonne, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. In the macrocosmic work, the hammer of creation, with its 4 arms bent at right angles, refers to the continual motion and revolution of the invisible cosmos of forces. In that of the manifested cosmos and our Earth, it points to the rotation in the cycles of time of the world's axis and their equatorial belts. The 2 lines forming the swastika, meaning spirit and matter, and the 4 hooks suggesting the motion in the revolving cycles.
So it is as an instrument of cyclic time that the swastika is associated with 7 and 14, because these are the time is oriented towards these 2 numbers, right? Saturn is in ancient days was associated with the number 7 and is the it's a lord of time and controller of time. So we're not going to get into the specifics of the numbers concerning the links of various time cycles at this point. It's enough to realize that they are all determined by pi, by this 31415. So it's news to me. So next up, can we get a reader for this? Oh no, I'm going to read this myself because it's a little hairy. I've had a little practice. And it may be shown that Mr. Ralston Skinner, author of The Source of Measures, reads the Hebrew word Alhim, and Alhim, by the way, is the collective Prajapatis, right? Elohim, Alhim, okay, in the same number values by omitting, as said, the ciphers and by permutation, 13514, since A, first letter, is 1, L second letter is 3 or 30, H is 5, 1 for 10, and M is 4, 40. And anagrammatically, 31415, as explained by him. In other words, as stated in the Theosophical Glossary, the number of values of the letters of Elohim, transliterated as Elohim, are 13514. When used anagrammatically, remember that's just a rearrangement, they may be read as 31415, the value of pi. The Elohim, which are collectively Elohim, and the Dhyani Buddhas or Chohans are the same. The point is that hidden within the names of these great builder gods is a numerical key to their functionality, which in total is pi. This suggests that the relationship between the diameter and the circle is not just a metaphor for the relationship between God and humanity, but is in fact a potency used by these great builder gods, by whatever name, to construct the universe. The swastika, demonstrating through Fohat, is the agency of this potency. The diameter is, at the beginning stages of creation, the all-encompassing potency or super-rational function of involution itself. Okay, next up. Can we get a reader for this B section continued?
Lorraine, can you read that?
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Thus, while in the metaphysical world, the circle with the one central point in it has no number and is called anapadaka, parentless and numberless, viz. It can fall under no calculation. In the manifested world, the mundane egg or circle is circumscribed within the groups called the line, the triangle, the pentacle, the second line, and the cube, or 13514. And when the point, having generated a line, thus becomes a diameter, which stands for the androgynous logos, then the figures become 31415, or a triangle, a line, a cube, the second line, and a pentacle. When the son separates from the mother, he becomes the father, the diameter standing for nature or the feminine principle. Therefore, it is said, in the world of being, the one point fructifies the line, the virgin matrix of cosmos, the egg-shaped zero, and the Immaculate Mother gives birth to the form that combines all forms. Prajapati is called the first procreating male and his mother's husband. This gives the keynote to all the later divine sons from Immaculate Mothers. It is greatly corroborated by the significant fact that Anna, the name of the mother of the Virgin Mary, now represented by the Roman Catholic Church as having given birth to her daughter in an immaculate way, Mary conceived without sin, is derived from the Chaldean Anna, heaven, or astral light, Anima Mundi, whence Anatia, Deva Durga, the wife of Siva, is also called Annapurna, and Kanya, the Virgin. Uma Kanya being her esoteric name and meaning the Virgin of Light, astral light in one of its multitudinous aspects.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, any thoughts or questions about this very full paragraph? Okay, you may remember that the first number, 13514, described in this paragraph is the direct numerical value of Elohim or Elohim, right? Direct transliteration, which when the diameter is created becomes 31415, from which the sun, quote, springs forth. Possibly the first number, 13514, emphasizes the identity of Elohim, whereas the second number, 3.1415, enables its functionality as pi. Let's look at the statement, when the son separates from the mother, he becomes the father. By the way, congratulations to everyone. We've, made our way through this very dense numerical section. So the mother becomes the father. When the son separates from the mother, he becomes the father. Well, this is not numerical, but it's still dense. He is Son while part of the unmanifest Trinity. But when the Son, as the one who is seven, expresses itself through the seven Prajapatis, he becomes the father of all that follows, the father of creation, the God of the Christian faith, Jehovah, rather than Ein Sof, the male Brahma, rather than the neuter Brahma, Oyahu the younger, rather than Oyahu the elder, okay? In this paragraph, HPB reviews concepts introduced in the poem. The point within the circle, the numberless one, generating the diameter, nature, the feminine principle from which springs Prajapati, the 7 in 1, quote, his mother's husband. The esoteric teaching concerning the Virgin Mother was made exoteric when it was applied to human mothers like Anna, mother of Mary, and of course Mary herself. But the source of it lies in this original move into the creative aspect, when the singularity became the male aspect, born from the Virgin's second logos. Okay, let's take a look at the footnote. Could we get a reader for this, please?
I'll go ahead and read that. We find the same expression in Egypt. Mot signifies, for one thing, mother, and shows the character assigned to her in the triad of that country. She was no less the mother than the wife of Ammon, one of the principal titles of the god being, the husband of his mother. The goddess Mot, or Mut, is addressed as Our Lady, the Queen of Heaven and of the earth, thus sharing these titles with the other mother goddesses, Isis, Hathor, etc.
Any thoughts or questions about that footnote? So, whether...
Yes.
Okay.
Oops. Go ahead, Scott, you're self-muted.
Actually, it's not in reference to that. I was going to go back up.
Go ahead.
Going back to the original diagrams at the beginning of the SD, where she gives you on the blank page the circle,
right?
The circle, the diameter, and then the vertical crossing, giving you a cross in the circle. I keep seeing that here. I always have. When I think of what is pi, the relationship is of the circumference of the circle represented by the circle, divided by horizontal line, the diameter, vertical line. If you look at that, that is the circle, the diameter, and the vertical line separated out.
What is that?
Well, just diagrammatically see a circle. Below that, a division symbol used in division, horizontal line. Below that, a vertical line representing the diameter. Circle, horizontal line, vertical line. That's the same thing pulled apart.
As the, you mean as the number 31415?
No, sorry. Just the diagram of the circle with the cross in it.
Yeah, got that.
We're just pulling that apart into three pieces. You have a circle, a diameter, and a vertical line. That is also, you can see it as pi. It's a circle divided by the diameter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I see. Okay. So what in it? What does the addition of the vertical line add?
Well, that's the male principle. That's the sun.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So, oh, yeah. Okay. Right. So that represents the one Lord, the singularity that issues forth from the second logos.
Mother's husband.
Yeah, the mother's husband. Yeah.
And also, I keep going back. Yeah, I throw that one out in geometry just to, I don't know, just put it up there. Think about that one. but also looking back at the top here, where he talks about the circle circumscribed by the groups, which I think is going back to this idea of the circle, this ring pass knot, which on it has the numbers 31415, which is a circle, that ring pass knot, across which is a diameter.
Right.
And that circle circumference is defined by a circle divided by its diameter, which is pi. It's a number turning on itself, sort of. I'm getting too far out there, and this is getting from where you're going, but I'm seeing this.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Just the circle.
Here,
diameter.
you know what? Let me get here. I'm on slide 76. Let me zoom back just to help everyone. Does that help?
No, it's a cross.
What do you? Oh, you want the one with the cross? Okay, I can find that. It's back here a little ways.
I don't know if it's worth the trouble here. I should shut up and move on here. There you go. Saw it back
You
there.
passed it, yeah.
Coming up. Where'd it go? Oh, I was looking for that black, but where is it?
17.
17? Oh, yeah. Sure. Okay.
You know,
Yeah, here we go. Okay, go ahead.
Just taking the symbol on the right and just separating it out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I was doing with that. You have, sorry about that. There's pi there. You have your diameter, you have your mother and the sun, horizontal and vertical. Pull them apart. Circle divided by the vertical line. I don't know. It's the same elements, just rearranged differently. And that is a pi is the circumference of the circle divided by its diameter, which is right there.
Yeah.
Right there in that diagram.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, something else that comes into being here on this third symbol is the radius, which is undefined in the diameter. And the radius is emanatory. You know, you could say that it is the expression of the will to be of the point in the center going to the outer circumference. You know, this reminds me of days of old, Scott.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, we're going back here to we're there. Did we do that? We did that. Didn't I do that or not? Somewhere around here.
Yes, she did that.
Did that, yeah. Right.
I think you're down.
Yeah, here we go. This is the, oh yeah, we were doing, right, the feminine aspect here, right? There we go. This is where we were. Good. So whether we've got the Chaldean Anna, the Hindu Anaita, and Uma Kanya, or the Egyptian Mut, Isis and Hathor, all represent the diameter, the virgin mother nature, the numinal cosmic feminine principle before generation. It's the key part. That's why it's virgin, because it's before generation. All virgin birth is referencing this teaching, okay? Next up, I did it again. I tell you. Sorry, folks, really am. There we go, okay. Commentary referencing the C section, which reads, and these are the essences, the flames, the elements, the builders, the numbers, the arupa, formless, the rupa, with bodies, and the force or divine man, the sum total. And from the divine man emanated the forms, the sparks, the sacred animals, and the messengers of the sacred fathers, the Petries, within the holy four. So could we get a reader for just where it starts with C?
Malia, can you read that for us, please?
Sure. The Devas, Petries, Rishis, the Suras, the Asuras, the Daitas, and the Adityas, the Danavas, and the Gandharvas, etc., all have their synonyms in our secret doctrine, as well as in the Kabbalah and the Hebrew angelology. But it is useless to give their ancient names, as it would only create confusion. Many of these may be found now, even in the Christian hierarchy of divine and celestial powers. All those thrones and dominions, virtues and principalities, cherubs, seraphs, and demons, the various denizens of the sidereal world, are the modern copies of archaic prototypes. The very symbolism in their names, when transliterated and arranged in Greek and Latin, are sufficient to show it, as will be proved in several cases further on.
So any thoughts or questions about this paragraph? This is a kind of overview of the hierarchy of celestial powers that carry out the building work of the Prajapatis and or Dhyani Chohans, which HPB calls the denizens of the sidereal world. And we're going to leave it at that. You know, we're not going to go in and define all these instances, you know, Gandharvas and Dainavas, at least not at this juncture. I don't think it would stick if we did. So next up, could we get a reader, please?
Okay, you have a question from Anne Veronica. She says, when we say force, we mean the divine man?
Well, force is a localized word for that which emanates from the being discussed, right? So for instance, our force centers are etheric centers, right? The force centers of Sanat Kumara are, for instance, humanity. Our experience of that force center is as energy. It's an energetic experience. There's a subtle difference between the nature of the word as used there. So I'm sorry, tell me your original question again. That's kind of as a preamble. Again, your question.
Hello. It says here that the force or divine man, and because I'm always wondering what's the difference between force and energy.
Yeah, well, that's it. Right. Yeah, the force of divine man. Well, first of all, divine man itself is, you can at least come up with 3 definitions of what that means, depending on the context, and I'll get into that. But the force means from the perspective of whatever being you're talking about, in this case, the divine man, it's that emanatory force, right? But its effect is one of energy. So, you know, the effect of the force of the divine man on a human being, it's felt energetically. It's a little confusing, but that's, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
And then, Anne Veronica, can you read whatever it is you want her to read, Francis?
Yes, coming up, it's right here.
The sacred animals are found in the Bible as well as in the Kabbalah, and they have their meaning, a very profound one too, on the page of the origins of life. In the Sefer Dzyan, it is stated that God engraved in the Holy Four the throne of his glory, the Ophanim, wheels or world spheres, the Seraphim, the sacred animals, and the ministering angel, and from these three, the air, water, and fire or ether, he formed his habitation. Thus was the world made through three seraphim, Sefer, Safar, and Sipur, or through numbers, and numbered. With the astronomical key, these sacred animals become the signs of the zodiac.
Any thoughts or questions about this paragraph? Perhaps the most famous, but certainly not the only sacred animals, are the bull, Taurus the bull, Leo the lion, Scorpio the eagle, and Aquarius the human, the latter standing in for the fiery serpent, which together, these four form the fixed cross. Later in this volume, HPB elaborates on these four. Could we get a reader for this? From the perspective of the evangelical zoology.
Carrie, can you read that, please?
The evangelical zoology, the bull, the eagle, the lion, and the angel, in reality the cherub or seraph, the fiery winged serpent, is as much pagan as that of the Egyptians or the Chaldeans. These four animals are in reality the symbols of the four elements and of the four lower principles in man. Nevertheless, they correspond physically and materially to the four constellations that form, so to speak, the suite or cortege of the solar god, and occupy during the winter solstice the four cardinal points of the zodiacal circle. These four animals may be seen in many of the Roman Catholic New Testaments where the portraits of the evangelists are given. They are the animals of Ezekiel's macabre chariot.
Thanks, Carrie. So the ophanim, let's describe him here, are the wheels seen by Ezekiel and by John in Revelation, but they're actually globes or, quote, world sphere. Here's an illustration of the ophanim from Jacob Boehm's Theosophia Revelata. So let's take a look at the, you know what, we're going to pull the plug right there. It's time. We'll pick up where we left off next time. Let's see, what are our dates, BL? I think the STOA, Secret Teaching of All Ages, is not until the 7th of
June. Right.
So that means 3 weeks until the next webinar.
Right, and then the next Secret Doctrine should be the 21st.
Is that right?
Let me verify that.
Let's see. Let me pull up my calendar.
May.
June 21st. Let's see.
Yeah.
June.
Right, June 21st.
Right, because Sunday is May 31st, so we have right, we have the 7th, 14th, yeah, the 21st. So 7th and the 21st, mark those days on your calendar, and we'll see you then. Thanks so much for participating. Really enjoyed your feedback this time. It's a difficult section of the this verse 3 is challenging, but I think we did pretty well with it, and I think it's quite rewarding to explore. So see you next time. And
hold on just one second. We have a hand up. Go ahead, please, Sylvia. Well, I don't hear her, so.
The voice of the silence to end with.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Until next time.
But there's also a question from Karsten.
Okay. I'm fine
So
with
they
that.
must also represent the chakra root, hara, solar plexus, and hearth.
What represents?
I'm just reading what he wrote.
Okay, what were we talking about?
Let me, Carson, can you please explain?
Yeah, try to go back. We were talking about the lower constitution of man. Yeah. There.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Four
So are you talking about these four qualities of the fixed cross? Do they also represent chakric energies? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, they must do. You say the symbols of the four elements you see in the middle.
I'm sorry, say again.
The four elements and of the four lower principle in man, that must also correspond to the four lower chakras.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that takes us all the way back to the Lord Tetractys, the Egyptian concept of the fundamental elements. And of course, you know, it's those lower chakras that allow a human being to incarnate, in fact, because they represent the energy of the incarnated quaternary, you know. So yes. Okay, folks, thanks very much for participating, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Sylvia's got her hand up again. So, Sylvia, did you have something that you wanted to say? No, we're still not hearing her. Okay, all right. Goodbye, everybody.
See you on the 7th for Secret Teaching of All Ages.
Okay, bye.